We're ready to go.
Now that I've unmuted us, yes, we are.
There you go. All right. Let's see. Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is going to be a regular meeting of the Seldovia City Council, Monday, March 23rd, 2026. Time is 6:08 p.m. and we'll go ahead and do roll call. Taylor.
Here.
Peyton.
Here.
Barber.
Here.
Keithley. Oh, excuse me. She's absent. Sorry about that. Langbert.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
All right, we have 5 out of 6 present. Keith Lee is out on vacay, so we do have a quorum. And if you can lead us off in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. As we said, Keith Lee is excused tonight. And at this point, I'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Langbart to approve tonight's agenda with a second by Peyton. Any further discussion on tonight's agenda before we vote? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the approval of tonight's agenda. All those in favor, Taylor?
Aye.
Peyton?
Aye.
Barber?
Aye.
Langbart?
Aye.
And Coleman?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5 in the affirmative with 1 absent. And Liz, were you able to get a chance to talk to him on?
You're up.
About a rule suspension?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I move to suspend the rules to allow Mayor Machicki to present prior to the consent agenda to be respectful of his time.
Okay, and do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Coleman to suspend the rules tonight to allow Mayor Machicki, who is scheduled in item G1, to go ahead and speak now prior to approval of the consent agenda. In respect of his time, he's got a full plate tonight. Any further discussion on that before we vote? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, Taylor?
Aye.
Peyton?
Aye.
Barber?
Aye.
Langbart?
Aye.
Coleman?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5 in the affirmative with 1 absent. Rules are suspended for the time being, and we will go ahead and have the borough mayor, Peter Machicki, join us this evening and give us an update on what's going on. I assume we're working through some technical issues here for a moment.
Mayor Machicki, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Got you now, loud and clear,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, it wouldn't, yeah, okay, I'll start over. Thanks for having me tonight. Sorry, I have a couple of other service area meetings to attend with other things, but I really appreciate you adjusting your schedule. I know this is 10 minutes, so I'm just going to zip through a few things, and then I'm most interested in your questions. So do you have video?
Yeah, you should be able to start your video.
Let's see. Where is that? Every one of these is different.
Yeah, if you hover over your lower left-hand corner, they'll show up.
Well, look at that.
There we go.
See, I didn't even need a 15-year-old. I had you. Um, so thank you. Yeah, I'll go for a couple minutes and then we'll see what kind of questions you have. Then may touch on some other things if there's time. Thrilled to be mayor of the Kenai Peninsula Borough, very diverse district, area, size of West Virginia, a lot more diverse. Some of you are across the water, some of you are nearby, but second class borough, we're just the lean and mean folks. And because of the escalation of real property values we've seen, we've tried to keep up with mill rate reductions. Ours is the lowest in the state at 3.85. Um, we are a just enough revenue government. We're not gonna keep, if you look at every other municipality around here and pretty much around the state, as escalation has occurred, they have not reduced their mill rates. We want to keep people here. We want to support families. Our biggest impact on school funding is the fact that we're missing 3,600 kids from the peak. More of an impact than the BSA, remaining relatively flat, so we take that very seriously. Um, Aside from the core responsibilities, what I love about our borough is we have the service area thing. So if a group of folks choose that they want an additional service, they can draw a little circle around their area and decide to go for a vote on something else. So I've been speaking with your rec service area lately about the pool situation. I know you're going to talk about that. We had a meeting today. Was informative. It's not what we do. Once we hand a school over to the KPBSD, it's theirs. We just felt like they had some limited capacity right now working on their budget issues, and we agreed to voluntarily take that on and try to provide some creative options that may support some of those services. So we have $180 million a year coming in for various things, education taking up, oh, I don't know, 73 million last year. Um, and 184 going out. That's by design. During COVID, the borough did not adjust the mill rates and over collected. So I'm trying to get us back to where that budget actually is balanced and keep as little of your money as possible. It's not a populism thing. It's a fairness thing. It's a that money hopefully can be better utilized by families to stay here, repair their cars, uh, go on a vacation, build an extra bedroom, whatever it takes to hopefully keep this area sustainable. So I know there were some questions about what happens with funding. First of all, what we bring in. And then I want to touch on our curve policy on funding. CPI is generally around 2.5% or under, but the long-term average is around 2.5%. That is our target every year since I've arrived. We've been able to meet it. There's going to be some years with escalation where it's going to be tough, but we look for times within our internal departments to shave below that 2.5% so that we can average over time at about that 2.5%. We started escalating before I got here. Um, no one can afford the mill rates of Anchorage, and we already have a sales tax and other things, so we've got it under control. It actually works really well. And no matter how far we are below on the other internal services of the Kenai Peninsula Borough, we always give at least that 2.5% to education. So we are the most generous second-class borough in the state by far. Over the last 7 years, we were $20 million away from the cap. And if you compare that to the other large second-class boroughs in the state, that was 2% away from the cap. Matsu was $150 million away from the cap and 9%. And Fairbanks was $120 million away from the cap and 8%. So that's the gap between what they paid and what they could pay. So we're very close. That last couple of percentage points is really expensive because it escalates so rapidly. So we're working on other things for education from the state. Remember, we have a statutory requirement for the borough's minimum funding. I usually use this little thing when I'm in person. The minimum funding is like this. What we fund is, well, as far as my arms can go across, and then what we're not funding looks like this with my arms spread out, right? And it's on that 2.5% curve. So although we may periodically have a true up, we are very generous. And that is the direct funding. Last year, we did fund at the cap for the first time in 21 years, but we also contributed another $11 million peripherally to education. So we were at 73 when the cap was 62. School bond funding, maintenance, some other things that were allowable over the cap. Um, so you asked some questions about like what the borough does. I'm not sure who had the question, but I'm happy to, if they want to phrase it again, I'm happy to specifically answer that question, or I can tell you what I think you asked, and you can tell me how close I am to it. How's that sound?
I think that was Councilman Barber.
Okay. Okay, very good.
Thank
So
you.
all in, go ahead, I'm sorry.
My question early on is that I was wanting to know what kind of taxes are collected on the east side of Kachemak Bay, and if proportionally, Seldovia is getting their fair share of borough taxes to support our services over here. And one major thing is the swimming pool that they want to cut. So it concerns me is, you know, I guess that's my question to you is I'm just curious what kind of money is generated off the east side of Kachemak Bay, and are we getting a fair share of it for Seldovia?
Yeah, so at 7.47, looking at your valuation, we raise about $700,000 in property taxes from Seldovia. Um, that's 94,000 in the road service area. No, I'm sorry. That's $122,000 for the road service area, $437,000 for the schools. SPH is $105,000, 94,000 for the service area. And then we do solid waste, school capital, school construction, tax collection, bonding, capital grants, all the finance services, planning, um, and we have the grant services for, we're always happy to partner with communities and do all over the borough on grant administration as well. So if you look at today's expenses, the way that it works out is the smaller areas are sort of living off the I don't want to say living off because you're paying your fair share, but I will say that you get a greater proportion per taxpayer or per dollar of taxpayer dollars because of the large service revenue density of communities like Homer, Seward, Kenai, and Soldotna, where the large population centers are. So yes, you do, and we fund the school to make sure they have enough money. This doesn't have anything to do with the pool closure has nothing to do with Kenai Peninsula Borough. If we were to fund to the cap every year, they'd still have a significant delta. The bottom line is this. The state has a constitutional requirement to fund education, and this year, with our statutory requirement, will surpass the statewide requirement for education. So the little tiny Kenai Peninsula Borough and our 62,000 people will spend more on education than the state of Alaska does, who has a constitutional requirement to maintain public education. So that crossover demonstrates that although we escalate every year, the state hasn't in a very long time. And last year's BSA correction of $670 was the first BSA increase of anything substantial since 2016, I believe. So they've been very flat and we've escalated every year. We're doing our part, can't do it all. And again, the 3,600 kids, if you multiply that out by today's BSA and you add the 13 time special needs um, multiplier, um, a lot of money has left the district on just kids that are no longer here. And then 30+% of our kids are going to homeschool, and 2/3 of them are going to a homeschool that's not from this district. So it's it's tough, and the state must correct what's broken about the BSA. So an interesting thing to recognize is even worse when you look at what's happening from the state's perspective. They This just started hitting us 2 years ago. Years ago, when they created the base student allocation formula, we weren't escalating at this rate. So we were using a completely different calculation on how the BSA is calculated. Since most of the municipalities have crossed over into the assessment being the determination of your funding, things have crossed over, and now we get less and less money from the state every year, and they expect us to pay more and more. However, we're not collecting it. If we were to collect at the rate that we were escalating, I don't know if you see this thing called Facebook, but folks are just a little bit upset about their assessments escalating so quickly. So we've tried to adjust those so it's not as difficult as it could be if we were to just keep the same mill rate and just continue collecting. So we're doing what we can. I'm working on with our legislators, Senator Bjorkman, who took my place, and Gary Stevens, and Mr. Ruffridge, and several other legislators on the education committees to do a temporary freeze of that shift while we spend the next couple years rewriting what's broken about the BSA. It's broken. It doesn't make sense for someone with a suggestion of a statutory shift to pay more than the one who's constitutionally required to fund education by the state constitution. It just doesn't make sense. It's not sustainable for any community, and it has to be reworked. The other thing I'm working on is Um, the state encouraged us to build 44 schools. They had school bond debt reimbursement and all kinds of capital dollars to maintain those schools. And when they created an exemption, a mandatory exemption, they were going to reimburse the boroughs for those exemptions. Well, none of that happens anymore. So why are you penalizing us on a 7-year waiting period and penalizing the district after 3 years after they close a school that they must close? I mean, they just, because we're missing 3,600 kids, we have 6 schools that are half full. So in the last few years, 20 schools have closed in the other big four districts, which is Fairbanks, Juneau, Matsu, and Anchorage. And we haven't closed any yet. The KPBSD put a consolidation plan together in 2019 because we were roaring toward this crossroad, if you will. And of course, COVID saved everybody. And now that the COVID dollars are running out, we're back in the same place, and they're finally, I think, starting to act. So we're doing our part. You're getting your bang for your buck and then some. The pools belong to the KPBSD. They're the property of the Kenai Peninsula Borough until it becomes an educational institution, and then they control that property until they decide that something is no longer an educational institution, and then it comes back to us. Does that answer your questions?
For the most part, are parents being paid to homeschool their children?
Are they being paid? Well, they receive about half of what they get from the state. They get 90% of the BSA. I think Connections, which is our homeschool program, is very close to IDEA and the other ones on what they give out for an allocation. They can use it in a lot of different ways. I hope that no one is personally benefiting, but you would have to ask State Deed how they feel about that.
I guess my question would be if they weren't being homeschooled and they were in public schools, would that revenue be captured by going back to putting them back in school?
Yes, it's about $13 million worth a year of leakage, which means we would be, of the big five, all have a pretty big deficit except for Fairbanks, who started on their allocation, I mean, I'm sorry, on their consolidation plan earlier. They have a $2.6 million surplus this year, and we would have about a $5 million surplus if those kids were attending our schools. And I'm not one that says that I'm a believer that you should force those kids into our schools, but the only meeting that's occurred between homeschool parents and the KPBSD was organized by me 3 years ago and trying to get an understanding of how we can improve our school services and bring some of those children back into the brick and mortar or partially back with classes and services that meet their needs. That was the last and only meeting, and we learned a lot of really valuable things at that meeting. So we do encourage the district to get active. The analogy I use, I used to work on gas turbines a lot, and General Electric was generally the kinds of turbines I worked on. If 35% of GE's market share walked out of the room, I don't think they would just shrug their shoulders and say, ah. I think they would fight for understanding what was happening with that market share and do the best they could to try to provide the services that those customers needed. Not sure we're doing that.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor Machik, I have one quick question on the 3,600 kids, the missing kids from the peak. What when you say that, what years are you referring to as the peak?
I think it was 95.
Okay, so it was quite a while ago then. Okay.
And
Okay.
a few of those, well, um, I'll say there were schools constructed at that time looking at a trend that had no reason to demonstrate that the trend would continue. If you remember, like Skyview was closed for 3 years, and a couple of those schools we really had to struggle to distribute kids to justify their existence. We never really had the students for a couple of those schools in the first place. They didn't materialize. And it's been a steady and across the board in Alaska, we've had out migration of families. In fact,
Yeah.
Kenai Peninsula Borough, we're gaining 550 to 650 seniors a year, and we're losing 2 to 17-year-olds like water, and they happen to be taking their parents with them. It's just the demographics across the state have been similar. In fact, people just aren't throughout the U.S. We're not the only state struggling with education costs because most areas of the U.S. have declining population of school-age kids. So what does that mean? It means we have to adjust to that, right? I mean, we can't just say oh well, that's not our problem. We have to say, okay, this is the number we have today. How do we get the most services into the classroom to deliver the best outcome? And how do we make that cost sustainable over time? We have to do it at the borough every day.
Yeah, challenges for sure. Jackie, you had a question?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, do you anticipate in the future with the LNG plant coming to the peninsula that maybe the population that they're talking about would boost these schools back up and maybe open the pools again?
Well, I hope so. As you know, the governor dropped a bill that dramatically reduces our property tax from that facility. which has never occurred in the history of the state. I don't know that that bill's going to pass, and we're certainly going to work it. I've been having a lot of meetings with legislators. Um, the property tax alone would be helpful because of the things that happen that can happen in your municipality. One of them is dropping the mill rate, and the other is um, ser- being able to support some of these services that are struggling today. A modern LNG facility, which you may or may not know is what I did for 40 years. Um, I think they're expecting 250 employees. There'll be some peripheral support businesses, but there'll be a lot of activity that can encourage some growth. It's very difficult for me. I mean, it's not as many jobs as there were in Nikiski and the Peak in the industrial area. There was about 800 jobs that we lost when the LNG plant and Agrium closed. Um, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. I think it brings some hope to the area and the availability of natural gas. Hopefully that's at an improved price than what we're paying today. Can certainly make some other commerce possible that would be very difficult with dwindling natural gas supplies. So yeah, I think you'll see some growth. The Kenai Peninsula has always done slow and steady. There's never been kind of a immediate boom that has dramatically increased the population. I don't think you're going to see that. But I think just the signals that are given when all those other factors are satisfied will be beneficial. Um, it's hard to say. I mean, we've been here before on the project. It's hard to say if we get any further along this time. It's a challenging project. I mean, globally, it would be the most expensive per unit on the planet. Um, but hopefully there's some federal support that brings that price down and would keep us from having to pay it on a unit basis every day as we heat our homes and generate electricity.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else have any questions for the mayor? You're probably getting short on time here, pushing 6:30. Not sure when your next meeting is there.
Well, I think this one's going to wait. I think this is important, and I think they have to wait. So if you have a couple more, I'm happy to take them.
Okay, Harmony, you have one?
I do have one. So at a recent, and I'm sorry, Mr. Machiki, I understand that you probably are hearing all these questions just overlapping. I was wondering about if the borough were to fund our school to the cap, does that limit what we are able to collect through our service area to fund the pool? If that's something that we're able to do going forward, if we decide to use the SRSA to help support the pool in this initial year, how you guys fund yours directly impact how? Do you understand my question?
I do understand your question. You don't have to be sorry about asking me anything. That's kind of what I do for a living. So, well, you don't have to worry about us funding for a cap because that's $9 million that nobody has and would put us in a dangerous place in our fund balance. That's the delta between the 52 million. What we told the district is if they take some action on controlling their costs through consolidation, we'll help with the transition. Um, it could be problematic if for some reason we got to the point where someday we corrected the BSA and the cap was more reasonable and we were getting to cap funding. Service area separates that if the pool would be contractually separated and no longer be a borough educational facility. So that's not a problem today. It won't be a problem today. Um, if it does become a problem in the future, I hope by then we have a better balance on state versus local contribution, which would make our cap a lot more reasonable and affordable.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah, go for it.
As a somebody who's not a fan of taxes, but is a property owner, parent of 4, volunteers all over the community, including in this board that we sit in here right now, who's sitting in my office here at the school district volunteering extra hours. I am pro this experiment for the funding of our service area, of the building that we use in the service area and of our pool. I know I speak as an individual. I do not speak for anybody else on this board here, but you know, that building does something different than what any other building currently does, ever has, or will do in the community. And the pool is important. It's important to the culture. It's important to our children. It's important to, you know, where we live and what we do as a people here on the seashore. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, that's pretty important 2 cents, Ms. Payton. We are certainly working. I mean, I support it. Your community has spoken up. You've taken the time to survey the folks willing to answer, which is a lot like the folks willing to vote. It's tight, but we're working on, I don't know if there's going to be a report from the manager today, but we are really fighting for some consistency on out of the district so we can actually determine the cost. I'm still willing to support an experiment, if you will, a pilot program. I'm worried that this might be one of those things that's kind of a shock deal to get people's attention on becoming motivated to support us in increasing education funding from Juneau, and I'm not willing to play with services and lives that way. So we really need to get some accurate numbers and the same answer twice. And once we do, I think we can put a package together. We've got some time, but I'm supportive of the concept. And unless I see some outlandish numbers coming our way that make that question difficult, I think it's the direction we're going. So I appreciate hearing that. Your community and Homer's been pretty outspoken about being supportive. Some of the others just aren't. And I do often, and has nothing to do with your statement, but often people say, you know, your community demands that you fund to the cap. I'm like, well, no, they just don't. They just don't. You do, or your group does. But people were so convinced that the Ninilchik pool was going to pass with flying colors because my job is to make sure I don't get myself into a little bubble where I think people believe a certain thing, because when you do that, you can be really wrong. So I actually asked people, and we asked your community, and they said yes. So I really want to help get you there. 1 year survivable. If we're right, we could continue, and if we're wrong, worse things come to worse. Perhaps it doesn't continue, but I hope we get there this year. I would like to see an example out there for a community willing to put their money where their flippers are, if you will. I don't know, whatever you use in a pool. And that might be a little nudge to others that say, well, education funding is here, but some of this other stuff is okay if we start kicking in a little bit on some of these things that really matter to us. That's why I love service areas. I mean, it ends up being a formal vote. You already have one. Don't need a vote for a mill rate increase, but your survey was really helpful.
Yeah, appreciate a little more talk on that. That clarified a few more things. So, all right, anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, I have one other question
Sure.
on this funding for the pool. Is there any, because to access Seldovia, it's either by air or water, and over time, one way or the other, we've been in it. Is there any federal support on in lieu of safety that is out there? I know the state probably their budget's tight too, but I'm just curious if there's any other funding that in lieu of safety that might be looked at.
Yeah, we have our grant, and I don't know if Heidi's spoken to her recently. We have our grant manager kind of looking over options. I mean, there's some of the strangest grant opportunities you'd ever think of, right? I mean, it just takes a member of Congress deciding something is important and it getting somewhere. May also be some tribal partnerships that could occur. I know that you're all having those discussions. It's not a big dollar number if you can get enough people interested to where it becomes manageable for all of the parties that want to support the service. So I hope to see that come together for the long term. I mean, a mill's a lot. So if we can get some additional support, we can bring that rate down a little bit. And I'm glad most near, well over half of your community is willing to support that. Um, when we're talking about forming service areas, and I advised Ninilchik not to make the circle as large as they did and to really try to sort of understand where their community was when you're running a campaign, right? So you don't want someone 50 miles away voting for you in your seat if they're not going to ever be able to see you, right? I mean, so the closer to the core is really important. There's a lot of thought to go into a service area, but I really love the idea that any community can decide they want to do this thing and gather their neighbors, but man, do your homework. Because what's bad about a service area funding, um, what's bad about a service area failing is now you've gone out and gotten a formal metric from your community that says, no, 70% of us do not support this. And frankly, that ties my hands. That's not your situation. That's another one, but that's what I'm advising other communities that are talking about pools. Look at other ways to do it for now, prove that it works. That way you know the numbers, and then if you want to do a service area later, you can. But you'll have some history behind you, so it's not a mystery vote, if you will.
Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Mayor, I think maybe we should do this a couple times a year.
Yeah, no, we'd love to have you. Love to have
Yeah.
you. Absolutely. No, anytime we get our state legislators and yourself and anyone from the borough, it's fantastic. We usually have a good Q&A and we're able to get caught up. So no, we definitely take you up on that, Mr. Mayor, for sure.
Yeah, if the ice ever leaves the harbor,
Yeah.
I keep a little sea sport down there, so I could run over. That'd be really fun to be in person sometime.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
perfect. Perfect. Well, thanks for coming tonight. Taking time out of your schedule. Obviously a number of important topics for us over on this side and yeah, just understanding where we're at education wise, for the whole borough. So yeah, a lot of important stuff going on. Keep up the fight down in Juneau. Obviously that's where our biggest battle lies here. So again, appreciate it and thank you. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you. Anytime, reach out anytime if I can help.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Yep, you
Good
too.
night.
All right. Well, good. Thanks you guys for your questions. That was good. Hopefully we got some feedback that was beneficial for everyone. So sounds like he's definitely in support of what we're trying to do. So that's good news. And obviously that takes the support of, the majority of the community to move stuff forward like that. So yeah, a lot of important stuff going on, the bigger picture in education with funding. It's the same thing, year after year here. So it is kind of interesting to hear how we stack up against the other districts, though, and we're right at the top. And I guess I didn't realize that. So that's pretty that's good to hear. So. All right, well, let's keep moving. We got a lot to do here. We'll move on to item E. That's our consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are approved with a single motion, no discussion, and one vote. The council member may request to remove any item for discussion in a separate vote. Items removed from the consent agenda will be placed under new business. Tonight's consent agenda consists of the minutes of the regular meeting from March 9th, 2026. The second item is ordinance 26-13. that was introduced as an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Seldovia, Alaska, adopting the 2025 Seldovia Comprehensive Plan and recommending adoption by the Kenai Peninsula Borough. And that has a recommended public hearing on April 13th, 2026. Those are the two items we have tonight on our consent agenda. Does any member wish to remove either of those at this time for later discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'll vote to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Okay,
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
okay. We have a motion from Councilmember Payton to approve tonight's consent agenda with a second by Councilwoman Langbart. All those in favor, Taylor,
Aye.
Payton,
Aye.
Barber,
Aye.
Langbart,
Aye.
and Coleman.
Aye.
Motion passes 5 in the affirmative and 1 absent, and that was the approval of tonight's consent agenda. All right, thank you, everyone. That'll take us down to item E. This is a mayoral proclamation. This is proclamation 26-03, honoring caravan transfer. Let me get on to my other document here. Okay. This is going to be actually in the laydown on page 3.
Vote with a K too.
All right. Obviously, many of you know Russ and Sandy. They've been in the community for many, many years, and that is their business, Caravan Transfer. I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. This is honoring Caravan Transfer Incorporated for its longstanding service and contributions to the community of Seldovia. Whereas Caravan Transfer Incorporated is a locally operating transportation and freight company based in Seldovia, Alaska. And whereas Caravan Transfer Incorporated has been operating in Seldovia for decades and has served the region for more than 50 years. And whereas the company provides freight transportation and logistics services connecting communities across the Kenai Peninsula and beyond, including Seldovia, Homer, Seward, Nanilchik, Anchor Point, Kenai, Anchorage, and other Alaska communities. And whereas Caravan Transfer transports general freight and essential goods, including building materials, machinery, vehicles, food products, helping ensure the continued supply of materials necessary for homes and businesses in Seldovia and within the region. And whereas Caravan Transfer has provided local employment opportunities and supported economic activity in Seldovia while maintaining operations headquartered in the community. And whereas the dedication and continued operation of Caravan Transfer Incorporated strengthens the resilience, economy, and self-reliance of the Seldovia community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Jeremiah Campbell, Mayor of the City of Seldovia, and on behalf of the Seldovia City Council and all Seldovia residents, do hereby recognize and honor Caravan Transfer, Inc. for its longstanding service to the community of Seldovia and the surrounding region. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Seldovia to be affixed on this 23rd day of March, 2026. All right. And I assume they are not in the audience tonight?
No, they are not present at this time, Mayor Campbell.
All right, sounds good. I'll give Russ a call if he's not listening tonight. So, yeah, obviously, I know they are moving towards their retirement years here. So, yeah, it's been fantastic having them for many, many years, and assuming their business will continue on in one form or another here. So, all right. I will get that signed and we will get that out. All right, item G1, we've already taken care of that with Kenai Peninsula Borough Mayor, so that one's off the list. Item H, public presentation for items not on the agenda. Do we have anyone signed up tonight, Liz? Or in the audience?
We have no one signed up online, and I'm not seeing anyone in the audience.
Okay, Sounds good. Item I, committee and advisory board reports. We have none tonight. And then that'll take us to item J, and that is our administrative reports. The first one will be the finance monthly written report, and that's going to be on page 72 of your packet. Obviously, we're getting down to the last few months of our fiscal year here. So we should start slowly seeing all these percentages inch their way up into the 70s, 80%. Some are still a little under, some are a little over. So Heidi, any things of note on the finance report?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I would just point out that we discussed the dock it being in a negative net effect for FY27. You can see here that it does show a positive of 2,600 or yeah, 2,656 for FY26 so far, and we're hoping to have another quarter. So that's a big difference from the net effect in FY25. And we hope to remain steady, but also trying to make sure that we budget well and to follow some actuals. Just wanted to point that out that we just continue to ride that line. The rest of the accounts seem fairly healthy at this point, but Doc is doing all right to date.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions on the finance report tonight? Okay. It'll take us to our next one. That's going to be the Harbor Masters monthly written report, and that'll be on page 76 of the packet. Obviously, we're moving a little closer to spring here, and I can imagine everyone down there is starting to get a little excited at the extra sunlight, a little extra warmth, and probably moving here in the next month and a half or so. Getting water turned on, things will start happening rapidly here. So, any questions on the Harbor Masters report? Okay, and then the last one tonight is going to be the Public Works report. That's going to be found on page 78 of your packet.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, there is an accompanying water treatment plant report on
Okay.
page 79. So those are together under Public Works.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Sure.
Back on the harbor on the RV park and the total revenue on that, and I believe Heidi mentioned that the harbor master was collecting fees for that. Does that have any significant change in our budget or anything for, is it divided up or does it make a difference in any way?
Not a significant difference, but we are going to make sure that we remedy that issue.
Okay, because it's not a bad way to collect fees for
Yeah.
it. And it may be something you want to look at is just say, hey, harbor master, they're there most of the time and pay it the harbor master.
Could be.
Yeah. That's it. Thanks.
What on the water treatment plant, I'm assuming this means, well, we probably had a number of leaks. So our average daily consumption through distribution was 71,000 gallons. That was up 68% from last February. I'm assuming that's a couple either water main leaks or a lot of people running their water, leaving their water running due to the extreme cold.
Lots of frozen pipes.
Yeah, through the mayor, there has been a lot of frozen pipes in the community in the last 2 months.
Yeah.
More than I've ever experienced before. So, we are advising people to run their water, which is not something that we normally do.
Yeah.
And then, certainly, yeah, we're seeing some damage from those freezing temperatures.
Do we still have any active below ground leaks right now, or what, are they getting them all pretty well cornered?
They were pretty well cornered at the fall. I'm sure that as the spring thaw continues, or hopefully happens, I shouldn't say continues, that's getting ahead of myself, but when it happens, we'll probably see some more, and then that'll be a great time to do some leak detection and try to take care of any issues that have happened over the winter and especially in the spring.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Anyone else have any questions on the Public Works or the water report? Okay. All right, that will conclude our item J, which is our administrative reports. That'll take us down to item K, public hearings. This will be ordinance 26-12, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Seldovia, Alaska, amending chapter 18.96 public hearings to entitle it quasi judicial public hearings and adding section 18.96.030, authorizing the Board of Adjustment and the Planning Commission to use a hearing officer to make quasi judicial decisions, and amending sections 18.20.015, 18.88.020, 18.92.010, 18.92.050, 18.96.010, 18.96.020, and 18.97.010 to clarify the differences between quasi-judicial and legislative actions and hearings before city bodies and officials. And this is found on page 80 of your packet. And it looks like the city clerk will give us an overview on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You'll find the ordinance on page 80, and it's a 4-page ordinance. And following that on page 84 is a memorandum that will kind of summarize the changes. But this was drafted by legal and has gone before the Planning Commission for review. And this ordinance provides clarifying language to distinguish between the two types of action as provided by the Alaska Supreme Court between legislative action and quasi-judicial action. And it allows the Planning Commission or the Board of Adjustment to transfer their body's decision-making authority for any quasi-judicial action or appeal governed by our zoning code to a hearing officer qualified under this chapter. And this is a process that other municipalities use. And the summary of changes is below. I can go through it kind of one by one if you'd like, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to just kind of quickly go through this.
Okay, so it would amend the following in the code. So in section 2, it would add a definition of quasi-judicial action. And this was a recommendation added in the Planning Commission. Review of this is just to make sure there's a clear definition of quasi-judicial action. Section 3 adds the language quasi-judicial decisions of the Planning Commission to the powers and duties of the Planning Commission, and clarifying that the Board of Adjustment hears and decides appeals on quasi-judicial actions. Sections 4 and 5 would add language to the code clarifying that a quasi-judicial action or determination under the zoning code is appealable. And in section 6 of the bill amends chapter 18.96, which was public hearings, and it retitles it quasi-judicial public hearings and defines public hearing as a quasi judicial hearing open to the public. In section 7, it adds clarifying language that quasi judicial public hearings do not govern public hearings held on legislative actions by the council, city administration officials, or any other governmental body. And in section 8, it adds a new section, and this is the one that provides for the hearing officer, for which the planning commission or board of adjustment may transfer their decision-making authority on quasi-judicial actions or appeals. And it doesn't require it just gives the option to the board or the planning commission to avail themselves of that option and just provides a process for it. Section 9 clarifies that the public shall be given notice of all quasi-judicial public hearing under Title 18 unless otherwise provided by law, and includes a hearing officer as an entity that may act. And Section 10 renumbers notification of neighboring property owners. And in Section 11, it has clarifying language that an amendment to the zoning map procedures and that any action by council or planning commission to recommend or adopt or not adopt an amendment to a zoning district or the zoning map under this title constitutes legislative action. And attached to that, I've included just the current chapters of all the codes referenced. Seldovia Municipal Code 18.88, 18.92, 18.96, and 18.97. So what follows on those pages is our current code.
Okay, sounds good. All right, I'll go ahead and bring that back to, thank you, Liz, for doing that. And then I'll bring that back to council. Any questions or comments by council on this? Okay, yeah, I'll just make a comment. Yeah, we had talked about this previously, went through it. It's pretty clean. I'm definitely in support of going this route. I like the option of having the hearing officer be part of that, which would be the as part of the city, an attorney. Does it have to be our city attorney, or does it just have to, it can be an attorney?
It would be somebody that the clerk would choose. It doesn't have to be our city attorney.
Okay, it doesn't have to be our specific, okay. Okay. No, but I think either way, in the end, it gives us the resources we need. If we, when the time comes, if we get into something like that again on the quasi judicial type stuff. So I'll definitely be in support. Anyone else?
I'm in support of this. I think, like you said, the language is really clean and it's needed.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone from the public either signed up online or in the building that would like to comment on ordinance 26-12?
I'm not seeing any, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, sounds good. We'll bring ordinance 26-12 back to council for final action. And if there's no further discussion on it, I'd look for a motion to approve ordinance 26-12.
Mr. Mayor, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve ordinance 26-12.
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, sounds good. We have a motion by Langvart to approve ordinance 26-12. We have a second by Taylor to also approve ordinance 26-12. Is there any further discussion on ordinance 26-12 before we vote? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the approval of ordinance 26-12. All those in favor, Taylor,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Barber,
Aye.
Langvart,
Aye.
and Coleman.
Aye.
Motion passes 5 in the affirmative and 1 absent. And that was the approval of ordinance 26-12. All right, thank you everyone for that. That'll take us down to item L, unfinished business, none. Item M, new business, none. Item N, city manager's report, and this will be in your laydown. And Heidi, this one's all you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will jump in real quick and just say, I didn't include it in here, but as Mayor Machicki alluded to, we did have a meeting today between the city managers and some of the mayors on the peninsula and Mayor Machicki, and just talking about being able to move forward in negotiations with the district and ensuring that we're all on the same page when it comes to costs that could potentially be incurred in the community. Very encouraging. So while there's been support for Sursa to take up the helm, I don't think I think that support is ongoing, but there's a potential that model could shift slightly. And we'll see how that works. But ultimately, it was really nice to have the boroughs back and have a conversation overall between all the communities. So looking forward to having bigger conversations with the district included and seeing how those turn about. And I'm glad he was able to come to speak this evening. In terms of the report itself and the laydown, the great news is that finally we're actually issued the letter of concurrence, and our NEPA review for the Jackaloff Bay dock is complete. So no more red tape. Right now, we're just finishing contract negotiations. Well, I guess that's still red tape, but the final pieces, the draft RFP I saw last week, it's looking pretty great. There was a couple of last minute things that were going in, not last minute, but a couple of things that needed to be updated. They were supposed to have that draft to me today, and I haven't seen it yet, so I will follow up with Moffett and Nickel, but hoping to get that out sooner than later. Typically, that would be something that would be approved by the council before we put it out. It's pretty standard, so I'm wondering if you guys would provide forgiveness if we issued the RFP and then asked for approval at the April 13th meeting, if that's something that comes about sooner, just so that we make sure we have that, just so we can get it out as soon as it's available. Jackaloff Uplands application, we talked about that we've spent 2,200 now, and that includes the application fee and survey instructions, and we're just moving ahead with that process. The raw water transmission line replacement project easement was signed by myself and after the approval of the city council by resolution at their last meeting. We're still awaiting hearing back from the University of Alaska and receiving those signatures back from them. We have a couple questions in about whether or not we need to remove the pipe that's in the ground, or if we can abandon in place, and just some other smaller things. So we're waiting to hear back on that. We did issue a change order for the project so that the transmission line is officially relocated moving forward. So that's really exciting. All very good things. It's still on schedule for construction to begin in May. The fuel facility improvements project draft contract is in review. It was reviewed by the funder and is now in with Kuna, and they were going to send it through their legal, and we hope to get that buttoned up shortly and begin work in earnest on that project as well. If you remember correctly, the work for that project is scheduled for September for the construction work. And until then, we'll be doing design, engineering, ordering materials, getting things set. This project also includes in-kind contributions with our planning department, or not our planning department, with our public works department. So we are anticipating that the crew will have to be available to help provide support for that project, as well as some equipment. Main Street Seldovia stormwater infrastructure improvements. We met, myself and HDR with DOT last week and, or maybe it was the end of the week before. And there were a lot more questions that were anticipated and a lot more overhead than was anticipated. It turned into a bigger project and a bigger ask, from DOT than what anybody anticipated, as I said. So with that, looking at how to utilize our funds to the best availability, and that we may shift gears. The project was supposed to complete the work for Main Street North. But we're having some holdups with some of those additional requirements. So trying to complete those, they're going to cost a little bit extra. And then instead of trying to do the construction for that project with this funds, since it's more funds will be utilized for the design and permitting, we're looking at actually purchasing materials for Main Street South, because that's a project that we can work on standalone without DOT, and just trying to make sure that we can at least button up that project. They'll both have draft RFPs. They'll both have full design and engineering. They'll have everything they need to be complete projects. And then with any remaining funds, we'll purchase materials for Main Street South, make sure that the RFP has owner furnished materials, and then look at funding moving forward in order to complete either project. So that was really
Is Main Street South, is that the start with the new collector in front of the pavilion?
correct. Yeah. So
Okay,
instead
that's
of
just
trying,
outside of DOT's purview then?
exactly. So originally the 65% design and the plan was to incorporate that DOT infrastructure on that project, on that part of the project. And we've moved away from that and we're gonna incorporate our own system. It just doesn't seem like DOT is ready at this point, to have that conversation. I heard multiple times that Seldovia is just not really the priority yet, and that we'll get there when we get there. But for right now, we are unique that we are an urban setting in a rural area, and there was a lot of questions on how to handle the situation. So that's still a priority, and we still want to complete that project. And after consulting with HDR afterwards, and then bringing it up to Aqua, I'll be meeting with them tomorrow, looking at how we can move forward the most efficiently, utilizing the dollars available.
Okay.
Let's see, the next couple of projects are kind of staying status quo. There's always things working in the background, but no significant updates. Senior meals program, we talked about some of those additional fund usage for freezers and supplies, and the stairs potentially. You guys are going to keep hearing stairs over and over again. I apologize. It's just, they're just needing to be done. VSW project, water and wastewater system evaluation. We received an alternatives memorandum for the project, which is being reviewed by Public Works. Looking pretty great. It's looked at all the project areas that we had asked. That was that list that was in the CIP that included the dam, the transmission line, and the raw water transmission line. And we're talking about the upper portion now, Block Street sewer, the Anderson Winifred water extension that has been dead-ended, Vista Avenue water and sewer, Iliamna sewer, just the things that we've had on our lists for a while. And the alternatives included full replacement for each. Some of them had like some slip line alternatives. And then it's a requirement that they all have no action. So that will go to DEC, and they'll be able to have a bigger discussion about how to move forward with preliminary design. And really looking forward to seeing some of these projects get closer and closer to seeking construction funding. The SVFD repeater replacement project, I figured I should give you a little bit better update. The lone repeater, as we talked about last time, that was installed while the new repeater is being worked on, is no longer working. And Procom has plans to be in Homer around March 30th. They will send somebody over to check out the equipment here. And they're also hoping that the new repeater will be repaired by then and they can bring it down with them. So we're happy to finally have them on the ground, and hopefully we'll get some good solutions from that. Going to the next project page, the ATS cybersecurity project. After speaking with ATS about the remaining work for the project, they are planning a return trip. We'll have to get a scope of work and cost estimate for them, but that will include the additional requests for installing a radio at the Public Works, putting some of our remaining Public Works and fire hall computers on the server, helping the city clerk with a few projects that she has. Oh, and putting this council chambers on the server computer, and upgrading our phone system so we can continue consolidating those. We're looking forward to having that complete. So hopefully that won't be too outrageous, and we'll be able to budget for it. Andy Anderson Police Department improvements are finally underway. Dewey Newhouse has taken it upon himself to begin priming and painting. So we're looking forward to being able to help out with that as time allows. And then under just the normal project and activity updates, wanted to let you guys know that that annual membership meeting for the Seldovia Volunteer Fire Department EMS is finally rescheduled for this Thursday, March 26th. It's potluck. Come, families are welcome. If you're interested in being a member in the department, please show up. They're going to be discussing the election of officers, the FY26 and FY27 budget, the new logo selection, and that membership incentive opportunity for the Guardian Flight Group subscription. So yeah, looking forward to that. Can't remember if that was 5 or 6 p.m. There's a flyer in the packet. I have to look.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. So come if you are a volunteer or would like to be a volunteer. We are trying to finally make some progress on our water meter pilot program, and this isn't an additional charge or fee for this program. We're seeking interested parties who would like to have a meter on their structure, whether that's a business or a residence. We have 5/8 or 3/4 inch meters, so no 1 inch, but we can certainly grab some or bigger sizes if there's real interest in that. We're hoping to get a good cross section of our customers. So making sure that we have a couple large commercial, small commercial, base rate residential, and residential, and then be able to begin monitoring those and just really seeing what that usage looks like in the community. Speaking of cameras at Jack Laugh, as it came up in the work session earlier, we are working with the Alaska Association Observing System, the AOOS. They have funding to install web cameras for ocean monitoring. Through coordination with Paul Zico with NCCOS and NOAA Kissimmee Bay Laboratory, we started discussions about what that would look like in Seldovia. The dock is a real natural place that already has power and is accessible. So we are in the process of receiving a camera to install there, probably on the city building looking out over the city dock. And because you can see a couple buoys from there, and it's a good Alaska ocean observing site. We also talked about Jack Laugh, and I reached out to HEA to see if they had any interest in working with us on this, since they have we have a light pole out there, but there's limited power connectivity. And the next time they come over, they're supposed to take a trip out there and check it out and see if there's any potential there. In the meantime, they've asked if I can go out and take some pictures and send them out, and we'll just have that discussion and see what's possible, because sounds like regardless, we'll need to figure that situation out moving forward. The Rural Health Transformation Program, we've talked about a few times. It's very exciting funding that's available, and maybe it'd be good for the pool. We've talked about that potentially. I was just thinking in the work session, maybe it would be good for Washateria. I'm not sure, but in speaking with the AML grant writer, they really do seem to have or are focused on projects that they've already identified, because they have such a short implementation timeline this first round of funding. So she recommended that we wait until the next year or next couple of years, when we would have a better scope and implementation timeframe to submit an application, which I think is wise, just because it's so big, it's so heavy, and it's not very well defined at this point. So it would be beneficial, probably for a package or an application to wait and see how this year shapes out. What they have been working on for us is they continue to seek funding for the dam improvements. There really haven't been any opportunities to date. State doesn't have any funding. USDA doesn't have any funding. It's just not a thing, which have been interesting. Historic boardwalk improvements, an application was submitted for that. An application was also submitted for the Harbor Waterfront Boardwalk Planning Project. They did source the Minnesota Housing Partnership for us for our housing needs assessment. And I wanted to make sure to throw in there that Cape Head, though it's not through AML, is working on a borough-wide housing needs assessment. So those are two opportunities for that project that's been prioritized. And then the heavy equipment and emergency storage building outside of the inundation zone planning project, looking at funding for that. And not through AML again, but those legislative requests were submitted, and just looking at what that looks like. There's supposed to be a lot of funding opportunities being released in the next month from DOT. So we're trying to just keep an eye on that and preparing to potentially do a transportation application for the boardwalks, and see what that will look like. We had that issue with the safety action plan. We do have the borough safety action plan. We're talking about still doing an in-house safety action plan, but just making sure that we can leverage that and the comprehensive plan for those funds. So you'll hear more as we know more. Upcoming council business. Thank you guys for a very productive work session today for special revenue funds. We've already talked about the general fund, talked about the cash flow management plan, and did a mid-year budget adjustment. Looking at the next two topics being the FY27 fee schedule and the FY27 capital projects. And I apologize, I didn't change the dates on an upcoming council meeting, but hoping that maybe we can have these discussions before the next two April meetings, or if you guys want to look at a standalone meeting for either or, please let us know. And otherwise, I think we've been through it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Great. Thank you, Heidi. Does anyone have any questions for the manager on tonight's manager's report? All right, sounds good. That'll take us down to item O, informational items not requiring action. City office will be closed on Monday, March 30th, 2026 for Seward's Day. And the city will have limited staffing the last week of March through the first week of April. Item P, executive session, none. Item Q, council and mayor comments concerning items not on the agenda. Taylor.
None, Mr. Mayor.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Jackie. Peyton.
None.
That was a no, Harmony.
Yes, none tonight.
Okay. Barber.
No comment.
Okay. Langbart.
No comment this evening.
Okay. And Coleman.
Good evening, Your Mayor.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone for attending tonight. Appreciate that. And let's see, next meeting is going to be a regular meeting held on Monday, April 13th. And then between now and then, we'll get some dates and times out and coordinate for a work session there to get our last two items on our, as part of our budget process discussed and taken care of. So other than that, did you have anything else you wanted to add, Heidi?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, sounds good. With that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn with a second. Do I hear any objections? All right, hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, you guys, enjoy the sun, what's left of it.
Thank you, everyone.